Thank you so much for the introduction. Good morning, everyone. As a speaker, this is the toughest spot to do a talk. Do you know why? Yes, you're competing with food, which is very, very difficult. But let's see, I'll try to make it interesting with some stories and some experience shares. And I think as humans, all of us like stories, don't we? Okay, so and I'm going to request some interaction from you as well. So you might have seen some handouts in front of you. If you don't have those, please a quick show of hands and we'll pass it around. It says Allyship and Agile. So there are a few at the front table. If someone can help me pass those, that would be awesome. And don't read it yet, okay? Focus on what I'm saying and then we'll get to it. Cool. So allyship and agile, let's forget about everything and let's start with a riddle to begin with. Let's put on our thinking hats and see how much are we awake before the lunch session. But before I do that, I'm going to quickly introduce myself. That was a wonderful introduction. Thank you so much. Currently, I am very much a technology person, though there's a lot of DEI and allyship around the introduction that I had. Very, very quickly, what I do is, all of us live a life today where we use technology, right? We use laptops, we have taken vaccinations after COVID. So you realize that this has been researched by someone, right? Like scientists sitting in a laboratory, technology, everything we use today in our day-to-day lives has been researched. So the research of yesterday is the lives that we live in today. Perfect? We don't usually connect it, but why is it important? Now imagine there's a research that's been published from some developed Western country, say USA, and say there's a research that's been published from Asia, say Nepal or India. And both are equally good, credible researches. Which one do you think is more likely to be appreciated? I see a few smiling faces. There's no wrong answer. You can call it out. The research from the West. Okay, I see a few nodding faces. Likewise, say there's a Nobel laureate who's published a research versus a new researcher who's come up with some groundbreaking idea. Whose research do you think will be more appreciated? The Nobel laureate's research, right? So in the first one, there was geographic bias at play. In the second one, there's a career stage bias at play. Likewise, there's a gender bias. It could be a cultural bias. And there's so many biases that exist in scholarly publishing or scientific publishing. So I work with Springer Nature, which is the world's leading publishing house. And I am working on solving this problem of ensuring that research is done by everyone and is accessible by everyone. Because we don't want to live in a world where similar like-minded people do something and it's not solving problem for everyone in the world, right? So that's a bit about me. I'm still a technology person. I use data to solve this problem. So moving on, there's a riddle for you, okay? If you know the answer, just stay quiet for like 10 seconds and then we'll look at what the answers are. So here's the riddle. A father and a son are in a terrible accident. The father is killed instantly and the son is rushed to the hospital for a surgery. The surgeon enters the room and says, I can't perform this procedure. This boy is my son. Take 10 seconds, okay? Take 10 seconds and think what could be the possibilities. And a quick show of hands if you have your answers ready, okay? We are going to wait for a few more hands to go up. Okay, perfect. Any volunteers? You can just shout out your answers. Okay, the mother, what else? In-law, what else? The father of the child, okay, what else? Okay, stepfather. Now we are getting real, right? Like some drama and some daily soap, especially afternoon time. Okay. Cool. So the answer here is the father, the surgeon here is the mother. right? And some of you has rightly answered. How many people could not get it? I could not get it when I first thought about this. And the very reason for that was, in school, if you look at pictures of like doctors, it's very, very deep rooted in us. Okay, now just close your eyes for 10 seconds and picture a nurse. Okay, what are the things that come to your mind? Just shout out any describing words. White dress, lady, a hat, what else? Beautiful, okay. Sorry? Okay. Assistant to a male doctor, interesting. Okay, last one. Don't close your eyes now. Picture a scientist and tell me what the describing words are. Nerdy, long coat, glasses, curly hair, okay. A typical Einstein image, right? Okay, so this was a study that was done in the beginning of the 19th century where children were asked to draw a scientist, okay? And they typically drew someone who is like a very fair white person, tall, mostly a man. And now, this research was conducted again last year, and children are drawing like different things. They're drawing people who are from different genders, not just men. They're drawing people of color. They're drawing people from different backgrounds as well, which is a nice positive change. So it's not, there's nothing wrong in being in a position where you're a white person. It's just that you need to acknowledge that it's a privilege. And all these examples were to show you that biases do exist. And as humans, they are always going to exist because that's brain's way of taking shortcuts and it helps us. In most of the cases, it does help us. And saying that I don't have biases is a bigger problem. Yes? So that's an interesting question. I think as we grow up, it's how things are conditioned growing up. But once you're grown up, because there have been conditions, I feel you become biased towards things. Becoming biased is more like an outcome for me. Exactly. No, no, no. I agree with it. So the conditioning is now letting us to be biased, is how I will put it. And the important thing is we acknowledge it. And that's the whole point. We're never going to be like away from biases. What is important is we acknowledge this because when we have these biases, the impact, and I'm going to skip this in the interest of time because we've interacted. When we have biases, imagine you're in a place where you're given a feeling that you're being tolerated or you're giving a feeling that you're being ignored, right? One thing that I've learned growing up and as an adult is you might forget how much you were paid, you might forget what compensation or other benefits you got. Of course, these are very important things, but how a person made you feel, even after 10 years or 15 years, you will definitely remember that. So if you make someone feel that you're ignoring them or tolerating them, you put that person in a limiting zone. Versus if you make people feel included, respected, valued for the work they do, then the individual comes in a high-performing zone. And of course, towards the extreme left, there's a damaging zone where you really like abuse them or harass them. That's the extreme. But this is basically to prove that when you make people respected and valued, they're going to be high-performing. It's good for the individual, of course. It is good for the teams, and then it is good for the organizations as well, in the culture that we're trying to build through that organization. And the impact it has is the trust those individuals are going to have on you and the psychological safety, the net that we provide them. And what I love about today is we also have a talk around psychological safety, and then Suvarna spoke a bit about biases, so I see like a very good transition happen through all the talks. So you'll hear more about psychological safety later in the day. But so we've seen like there are benefits, right? Like if you make people feel respected, they're going to be in a high-performing zone. And what organizations are doing is they're intentionally aligning their strategies to have like DI in them. DEI, a buzzword, I'll explain to you what it is. Just remember that organizations are taking some effort towards this for now. And what are they getting out of it? So, of course, we don't do things just because it's a hot word or a buzzword in a market. There has to be some real tangible value. And there's enough research done in this area which talks about like organizations with diverse and inclusive cultures are 8 times more likely to have better business outcomes, 6 times more likely to be innovative and agile, 6 times more likely to be high performing, and 2 times more likely to have financial targets. Now, a simple example I can give is people with disabilities, that is PWD. There are 1.3 billion people in the world who have one or more disabilities. Okay, now if you build products for them, not just for them, but with them, you gain the loyalty of these people, but apart from that, you also gain the loyalty of their family and friends, which is totally 3.5 billion people. That's more than world's half a population. To add to this, as you age, as you become a more senior person, as you cross 60, you tend to acquire one or more disability. And this group usually has a very big income that they have saved for their life. Now, trust me, if you're not building products for them, you're throwing away, you're like burning billions of dollars of money. So it has a business case, very importantly. In some countries, there's also a legal case to have DEI, but most importantly, it's the right thing to do. It's a human right to make someone feel respected or to respect someone. And so we spoke about how do we do it, and there's so many things in terms of that. It is good. We have established that so far. But how do you do it is by ensuring that we create equitable opportunities for people with diverse backgrounds, by creating an inclusive environment. But these are all big words, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Let me just simply break those for you. Diversity, necessarily, is all the differences we have as individuals. So I might have a different financial background, a different social background. I might come from a different gender. My schooling might be very different. And all these people, all these traits form my personality. And a very simple example that I can give you is, I will relate it to a story again. When I was in school, when Titanic, the movie released, everyone knows the movie Titanic, okay? And of course, like, I don't think my parents would have allowed me to watch that movie back then. But all that I knew was, there's an iceberg, the ship hits. And as kids, like, we were intrigued, the iceberg is like 7 times of what you see beneath the water. And as individuals, I think we are exactly the same. What you see is like one fold of me. There's so many layers to my personality that you might not be aware of. And that's what makes us unique. That's what makes us diverse. Inclusion is irrespective of all the differences we bring to the table. How is it that we can come together as a team and not only thrive, but succeed and flourish as a team? Yeah, so that's diversity, all the differences. Inclusion is along with all the differences, how can we succeed? And equity is very different to equality. Equity is giving everyone the same leveling field, which is giving everyone just enough so that they have the same playground to play on. Right? Very simple. And why am I even talking about it in this conference, right? This is an agile conference. So the reason I talk about it in this conference is very, very loosely translated. Agile allows us to leverage the unique skills that we have to build products and services which provide value to customers in a very, very fast and adaptive manner. Everyone with me so far? Perfect. And then DEI encompasses creating a welcoming and supporting environment for these individuals who are working on these products. So earlier, if I remember, growing up, I knew the customer is the king was the norm, right? But now if you look at organizations, they're shifting that to employees and people, which encompasses everyone rather than just customers. So these two concepts really go hand in hand. Rather, the values and principles that we have in Agile tell us like, you need to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. And the most important is build projects around motivated individuals. give them the environment and support they need, and trust them to get the job done. So for me, that implies that for Agile to work, DEI must be a core component of it. Again, putting simply, respecting individuals, being compassionate, because an individual is not what you see they are, right? There could be like 7 layers beneath it. But again, just because I theoretically said Agile needs to work, Agile is not a magic wand. All of us agree with that. We need to make things work. And there's a survey that was done by the Business Agility Institute. And the survey is quite a credible one. It's available for free on their website. It was done with 425 individuals with 20 different industries which use Agile, from almost 50 nationalities. Again, it encompassed people with disabilities, people from the different backgrounds as well. And what the survey said is 17% people witnessed exclusion, 26 believed it was actively created because of these practices, 11 to 20 methods, 20% methods are consciously designed for inclusion, so rest is all exclusion. And of course, there are biases and microaggressions that persist inside these organizations. So definitely there's a problem and we need to do actively something about it, right? Who do you think, like we know there's a problem, we know solving it has benefits, but who solves it? Whose responsibility do you think it is? Perfect, I have a wonderful audience. I should just turn off my presentation and walk away. Okay, very well said. So it's not a side project, first of all. And it is not the CEO's responsibility or leadership team responsibility or the manager's responsibility. It is an individual responsibility, and how you can support is by being an ally. Okay? And to explain this word, I'm going to tell you another story, which is of the elephant and the mouse. So imagine there's a room, and in this room there lives an elephant and there lives a mouse. So for the mouse to survive, it has to calculate and really observe what is the time the elephant gets up, what is the time the elephant moves around or plays around, just for it not to be crushed beneath the elephant's leg and die. But do you think the elephant has to be conscious when the mouse moves around? No, right? So that's exactly. So in some situations in life, we are the elephant, and in some situations in life, we are the mouse. Is there shame in being an elephant? I would say no. It's just that the elephant needs to acknowledge that it's the elephant, and it has some level of advantage because of its size. And that's exactly what we need to do, because it's a privilege. In this case, the elephant is privileged. And there's another story of how privileges are fluid. There's a practitioner, she's a very, very big name in the US. Her name is Sonali Anand, and she moved to the US in the 90s to do her post-graduation from India. So she came from Bombay or Mumbai, and she was from a very affluent family, as you can imagine, because she traveled in the 90s to pursue her post-graduation. According to the Indian caste system as well, she belonged to a very superior caste, and all her life she was like the elite, the upper class. And then she went to the US and she had a connecting flight via London Heathrow. And the moment she entered the washroom, what she noticed is all the people in the washroom cleaning there were looking like her. Okay? And her world changed upside down when she landed, and it hit her that in a country, she's going to be a group which is really very small. Not all people are going to be like her, and she's going to be a minority group. So she was very privileged, and the privilege shifted immediately. She landed in another country. So in life, sometimes you're going to be more privileged than someone, sometimes you're going to be less privileged than someone. What is important is you use this privilege to, when you are privileged, you use it to someone's advantage, and that's exactly what allyship is. So it's about when a person from a privileged background works in conjunction with a person from a marginalized background to remove the biases and to give equal access or to give basic rights because of whatever reason this person might not have got it. And then what does it mean to be an ally? So we saw the definitions, and we also saw that the privileges that you might have today, and you're always going to be more privileged than someone, and you're always going to be less privileged than someone. What is important is you become an ally when you are in the position of a privilege, and you also, most importantly, find an ally when you are in a position of less privilege. But I've spoken enough. Let's talk about what are the various areas there where barriers can exist. So there could be hundreds of them, but very, very simply, there could be biases around gender, or there could be barriers around gender, career stages as well. There could be barriers around caregiving responsibilities, right? I think during COVID, we became more empathetic to our colleagues who had like elder responsibilities or childcare responsibilities, and we worked together as a team, like adjusting schedules and stuff. There could be career stage biases, ability or disability biases, and there could be hundreds of them, like cultural, economic, educational background. And what is important is with all these backgrounds, we share a common reality, right? We share a common workplace like this, but we don't share a common reality because of the iceberg example that I gave you. And same people can experience the same group very, very differently because of these experiences. And if we do not consciously include, we will end up unconsciously excluding people, which is why we need to, as leaders, we need to give a thought to this. And when I say leader or leadership is not a tag that someone gives you. It is how you stand up to the occasion. It is how you feel, and it is how you make others feel. And so we've spoken enough about how advantageous it is to have allyship, but what does it mean to be an ally? So the first step, and a very, very practical one, is acknowledge that a gap exists. So if you are in a position of a privilege, you don't have to feel bad about it. And I'm not saying as a leader, you need to understand all the 7 layers of the iceberg. It is next to impossible. But you need to acknowledge that there might be different layers to a person's personality, and how can you become more empathetic or compassionate towards those individuals. And this is a very nice quote from the Dalai Lama. Of course, having a privilege is not a shortcoming, but loosely relating it to be aware of a single shortcoming within oneself is more useful than to be aware of 1,000 shortcomings in someone else. So acknowledge that as individuals, all of us are on a journey, and we need to understand what are our biases. That is very important. Then what is it that you can do in addition is identify the elephant and mouse dynamics in the team, bring change inside out. When I say inside out, you be the leader first, you act on it first. Reflect on your ways of working as a team. It's very, very important. Discuss findings with your team to bring change inside out. And when I say discuss findings, what it necessarily means is a lot of times it happens like, this is what is being decided, let's do it starting Monday. No. You say, this is what we learned, or would you be interested in doing it? Because when you co-create something with everyone, there's a lot more ownership. Focus on one diversity area to start with. So tomorrow, if you want to bring about like changes, don't try to eat the elephant at a time. It's always said, like, how do you eat an elephant? And I'm a vegetarian, so let's say a chocolate elephant is you eat an elephant one bite at a time. And then listen carefully to the verbal and non-verbal cues. Very important. And an example I can give is, like, I am from the state of Maharashtra. I was privileged to go to a school, English medium background, but there are a lot of people who study from vernacular mediums, right? Like the state language or the national language. So a lot of times people have amazing ideas, but they're not able to present it. So you look for the verbal and non-verbal cues, and I can bet the most amazing ideas come from the most unexpected sources. So watch out for the verbal and non-verbal cues, create opportunities for the strong and quiet voices in the room. For example, when I'm facilitating, I just don't ask people questions. Sometimes I would throw a question and ask them to talk, but not everyone is comfortable in talking. So sometimes I would give them post-its and I just say, like, reflect and write the points, and then we speak about those. So create a mix where, everyone can contribute, consciously include these ideas, practice courage. Sometimes you might listen to your leader say something. You don't have to put them on a spot, but point it out, check it out, and then sort it out. Just say, hey, I heard you say something like that. What do you mean by it? Then once they explain, you just say, by this, people felt that you wanted to say this, which is not, like, everyone is not comfortable with it. So sometimes you have to practice courage as well. But of course, that's the last step. Before it's said in Hindi, like, before you can't spread a carpet in the entire world. So it's better to wear slippers and walk. So first wear your own slippers, and then we can think about like improving everyone. Be an ally to someone, and equally important, find an ally for yourself. So next Monday, what I'm going to suggest is just observe. You don't have to do anything. Look out for cues where people talk over one another again and again. See if someone is trying to talk or share ideas, and if other people are trying to talk over them again and again. Again, they might not be doing it intentionally, okay? But don't say anything yet, just make observations. When someone is not comfortable talking in front of a group, maybe because they're an introvert, maybe because they're not comfortable with the language. When someone wants to make their idea heard, okay, check out for use of inclusive language. So instead of saying, these are small things, right? Like instead of saying, hey guys, you might want to say hello everyone or hello people. Again, the world will not collapse if you use language which is non-inclusive. But it's just those smaller things of showing respect. And once you do this, then on a Friday you say, hey, I made these observations. What do you think about it? Do we want to work on it? If the team says yes, there's some really fun ways of doing it. Like for example, you can create an ice cream wheel or a pizza wheel, gamify it. We used to do this a lot. If someone is talking over one another, just put their name. Or if someone is using just focusing on one area to begin with. If someone is speaking over again and again, write their names. And once the wheel is complete, you just ask people whose name are on the wheel to buy a pizza for the team or something of that sort. So just gamify these ways. We used to also do this when people were late for meetings, just to gamify things a bit. So think of what you are experiencing that I might not be aware of, and think of what you are experiencing that leaves you feel excluded. There's only one way to look at things until someone shows you how to look at them with different eyes. And with this session, I hope I've given you those eyes to look at things a little differently. Even if you try one thing, I think that would be a win for this session. So I would want to end with a very, very quick activity. It's just going to take 2 minutes or less. If you look at the handouts in front of you, the activity is called as My Trusted Six. And trust me, I had a lot of aha moments when I did this activity. So if you want to do it now, great. If you want to do it later, I've also written instructions in the end. But what you really need to do about it is write down the name of 6 people. In the interest of time, just let's write down the name of 3 people who you trust, okay, and who you go for when you have to make decisions. It could be in your personal or professional life, okay? Quickly, 10 seconds, write down the name of 3 people who you trust. Okay, everyone with me so far? For example, I've written my mother's name, okay? Say my mother's name is Shailaja. So is my gender same to her? Yes. So I leave it blank. I don't do anything. Only when it is different, I put a cross. Okay? So if the gender is same, leave it blank. If it is different, put a cross. My mother's profession is very, very different to my profession. So I put a cross here. Her age is very different to mine, of course. In age, you can take a leeway of plus minus 5 years. If it is same, leave it blank. If it is different, put a cross. Marital status is the same, so I will leave it blank. Her educational qualification is very, very different. So I will put a cross here again. And ability or disability status or different ability status. And mind you, this is not just physical disability. It could be related to mental health as well. If it is the same, you leave it blank. If it is different, you put a cross. Any questions? Everyone with me so far? Now, take 20 seconds and quickly repeat the activity for person number 2 and person number 3. And a quick show of hands if you are done. I'm going to go over a minute and finish this off. I don't want to keep you away from food. Okay, a quick show of hands if you're done. Okay, I see a few hands. Count the number of crosses you have. You don't have to share it with anyone, and there's no magic formula. But when I did this activity for the first time, the reason why it was eye-opening for me was I realized that I go to people who are very similar to me because I've made my mind and I just want to validate my decisions, rather than getting a different perspective from someone. it was a little bit like massaging my ego as well. Is there anything wrong in it? You might choose not to go to different people. There's nothing wrong in it. What is important is you know that you're doing it consciously. Because what I feel is doing a few things has got me here. From here, if I have to go elsewhere, I would have to take different perspectives into picture, which is what this activity made me aware of. You can use 10 different parameters to what I've mentioned. You can use it with 10 people, so you call it my trusted 10. But I would definitely request you to do this activity and most importantly, reflect on it. Okay, I would have loved to take a few more suggestions, but we are running short of time. So I will quickly wrap this up. In terms of takeaways, understand your own privilege, acknowledge that a gap exists, lead by example, very, very important. We don't want to be leaders who talk the talk. We want leaders who walk the talk. Understand that being intentional is the key. And most importantly, in a world where you can be anything, be an ally and find one for yourself. And remember, diversity is a fact. You can't change it. You can't change who you are. But opposite to it, inclusion is a choice, and we need to make this choice every single day. So that's it. This is my LinkedIn profile. A very big thank you for listening to me patiently. You've been a wonderful audience. And one takeaway message I would have for you is a big change happens one bite at a time, one step at a time. Start with yourself. Thank you so much. And make a commitment for yourself, like what is that one team meeting or one one-to-one discussion or a workshop or any opportunity next week where you can at least implement one learning. Make a mental note of it. If you are able to try at least one thing, that would be an amazing investment of your time here. Thank you so much. I'm available for any questions during or after the lunch, after you've had like a full stomach, but I'm here all day. Thank you so much.